Herle Burly Political Panel Viewer Listener Mailbag Edition special website bonus. Thank you for tuning in. I've got with me Jenni, Byrne, and Allan. Gregg, you could not have more expertise here about politics than we have, so let's answer a viewer question. And Jake W. writes in, I was wondering how long into your career with a prime minister, leader, cabinet minister, until you were comfortable telling them that's not a good idea. You're wrong. That was a bad interview. So when do you start being honest with politicians? And I presume this is related to was truth to power spoken during the we discussions, for example. Jenni, why don't you start us?
Well, I have to admit, I maybe didn't have a lot of self-awareness back when I started working in politics back in the late 90s for Preston Manning, and then later Stockwell Day, and then obviously Stephen Harper. I actually very early on, when I had gotten to the level where I was in meetings with MPs or the leader or later cabinet ministers, I said early on when I didn't agree with them and I thought they were making a bad decision. So I would say, for me, it was basically as soon as I got involved in politics, I would tell people what my opinion was.
And there's a reason for that, is that you learn very, very quickly when you gild the lily or kind of obfuscate and things go into the shitter. They don't thank you afterwards. I mean, one of my earlier experience, I was working for a leader of a provincial party who was running in a by-election. He hadn't been elected, and I was telling him all kinds of positive things because I was trying to be enthusiastic and if we can just get the farm vote out, we're going to win. And he got crushed. And his wife came to me afterwards and says, "Why didn't you tell us this? Did you not know, or were you lying to us?" And I just said to myself, well, that's it. If I have to tell the unvarnished truth, that's what I'm going to do, because that's the only way they're going to actually respect the perspective that I bring here. And if it's hard, and I work for a lot of leaders who only wanted to hear good news and were not happy when you brought them the good news. But as I said off the top, you learn very, very quickly that when you don't, they don't thank you when things go sideways.
Yeah, in terms of the by-election, I remember in the 2000 election when the Reform, our Alliance candidate, lost to Joe Clark in Calgary Centre, and that day we had this giant. It was the Grey Cup. It was Grey Cup Sunday, the day before the election, and we had this giant Burma shave. That's where you go and you hold up signs. Leading on basically on McLeod Trail, leading into McMahon Stadium in Calgary, and the candidate at the time afterwards, and this was like, then we had all those people, because why we did the Burma shave is then we wanted them to go door knock, like we wanted them. This is GOTV time, and the candidate came up to me and he said, "It's Sunday, and I'm just going to go spend the day. I need to spend some time with my family." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, after tomorrow, I think you'll probably have a lot more time to spend with your family. So have fun. But we're going to go out and door knock."
Yeah, I was lucky in the sense that my first job in politics was working for Ralph Goodale when he was the leader of the Saskatchewan Liberal Party. And it was essentially a one-person operation. So the two of us were driving around the province in his car. I was driving and he'd be working on speeches or whatever. And we'd be driving all day long from one small town to the other in the car together. And then at the end of the day, we'd be in some crap motel in some place and we'd order Chinese food and eat it together. Well, that tends to break down the boundaries between leader and staff member. And so we quickly developed a level of familiarity in which it was pretty much expected that I would tell him the truth. The other advantage, Allan, to the business that we're in, being pollsters, is that at least you're coming to the table with data. Other people just have their opinions. And so if you have a negative opinion, you can be dismissed. But if you've got data, you're a little bit more allowed to be a negative comment.
Yeah, we used to always say the last thing we say before F you is you haven't seen the numbers. But the other thing we all know is that there's so much deference to political leadership. I mean, if you were in the prime minister's office or in a minister's office, is that everyone is deferring to that political leader. That they actually will come to value unvarnished, hard, truthful advice if it proves to be beneficial to them over time, because they're hard pressed to get it from other sources.
And as soon as you get in there, there's a pressure there's the pressure to do that deification that you were talking about. Like, when Paul Martin became the prime minister, all of us who'd worked with him for years, we called him Paul. And bureaucrats and officials and the official Ottawa was beside itself that we would call the prime minister by his first name as opposed to referring to him as prime minister.
Yeah.
But there was a difference in the room between people who called him prime minister and people who called him Paul, and those were different relationships.
No one ever called Stephen Harper Stephen.
I bet that's right.
Called him Buddy.
No, but I worked for him. I had called him Stephen when we were in opposition, but it just was never. It was, and if people did, it was never going to be in like a group of people. And I never usually called him prime minister. I called him PM or I called him sir. And to this day, if I see him, I call him those exact, like call him PM or sir.
Yeah, I still call Bill Davis premium. I just turned 91 years old.
It used to drive Doug nuts because I wouldn't call Doug because I'd be briefing him and I'd say Premier, and he'd be like, Jenny, you got to call me Doug. And I'm like, I just can't bring myself to do it.
Well, that shows good judgment on your part, in my view. All right, Jake W., I think you got your money's worth out of that question. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Allan.